On the edge of sleep, my son knocked and gave me the most emotional news. If you have ever experienced a night where you believed nothing could catch you off guard, only to have your entire reality change in a heartbeat, then you will understand precisely how I felt. Just as I was preparing to extinguish the light, settle into my pillow, and surrender to slumber, a sound caught my attention. 3 soft taps echoed on my bedroom door. Unbeknownst to me, behind that door stood my son, Brian, clutching a piece of news that would forever alter my perception of him. Before I share the details of the event, I would like to know, from where are you tuning in to watch us this evening? Your comments are always a delight to read, and it's fascinating to see the journey our stories take. Allow me to transport you to that evening. The house was enveloped in darkness, accompanied by a profound silence that can only be experienced when everyone is at rest and the outside world lies in slumber. The bedside lamp emitted a gentle amber glow upon the wall, the light gracefully pooling over the quilt that I had drawn up to my waist. As I closed the book I had been engrossed in, I allowed my eyes a moment of respite when I suddenly heard it. The gentle, deliberate tap, not the frantic thud of an individual who has misplaced their keys, nor the forceful knock of a package arriving at the entrance. This was not the same. Consider with intention. Uncertain, I straightened my posture, gently sweeping the hair away from my face. "Come in," said Bassett, my voice low to avoid disturbing the rest of the house. The door slowly creaked open, revealing Brian, his tall silhouette framed by the soft glow of the hallway light behind him. His shoulders were subtly hunched, his hand lingering on the doorframe, as if he were uncertain about his presence in that moment. "Mother, may I have a moment of your time to discuss something?" His voice was soft, and there was an unmistakable quality in it that compelled me to set the book aside, without hesitation. "Certainly. Please, come in," I invited, gesturing toward the end of the bed with a gentle pat. He entered and gently shut the door, the soft click resonating in the quiet atmosphere. It was immediately apparent that he was reluctant to make eye contact with me initially. He rubbed his hands together as if summoning the courage to voice his thoughts. It was unusual for him to approach me at such a late hour, particularly with an air of uncertainty about him. I observed him for a moment, much like a mother does instinctively. The subtle shadows beneath his eyes, the manner in which his jaw tightened and then eased, as if he were engaged in an internal debate. A sensation of tightness gripped my chest, blending concern with curiosity. "What is happening?" I inquired softly. He paused for a moment before settling himself at the foot of my bed. The mattress shifted beneath his weight, the familiar aroma of his cologne lingering softly in the air, reminiscent of warm cedarwood. He gazed at his hands for an extended moment before he finally broke the silence. "I hesitated to share this with you at this moment, but I feel it's important to be open and not withhold it any longer." His tone was now steady, yet there was an underlying seriousness that quickened my pulse. The room appeared to shrink unexpectedly, the atmosphere growing denser. The wind outside gently rattled the window, serving as a reminder that the night continued its course beyond the confines of our intimate bedroom sanctuary. "Could you please clarify what it is?" I inquired, my voice scarcely rising above a whisper. He inhaled deeply, then at last locked his gaze with mine. At that moment, I realized that whatever he was about to express held significant importance. I have reached a significant decision that is poised to transform my circumstances. Indeed, for both of us. I blinked, scanning his expression for hints. Alteration. What is the method? He paused, a fleeting look cast aside before returning his gaze to me, his eyes now more piercing, imbued with a newfound certainty. I have been contemplating the direction of my life extensively. This evening, I came to the realization that I can no longer continue living as I have been. I must finally confront a decision I have been postponing for years. A part of me yearned to grasp his hand, to provide him with stability, yet I remained motionless. He required the opportunity to express his thoughts at his own pace. You have consistently encouraged me to maintain honesty with myself, he proceeded. I believe I am now prepared to take that step. The focus has shifted beyond my own interests. It concerns the individuals who matter to me, concerning you. His gaze locked onto mine. In that fleeting moment, I sensed a change in the atmosphere surrounding us. The very boy I had observed transform into a man was seated before me. However, this evening, he sensed a shift within himself, a newfound determination. I inclined my body forward so as to touch. Brian, I must admit, I'm feeling a bit uneasy. What does this decision entail? He exhaled deeply, his shoulders lowering slightly, as if to shed the burden of restraint. I'm resigning from my position. I have submitted my resignation. I am relocating here permanently. The words washed over me, both surprising and oddly reassuring. A multitude of questions swirled in my mind, yet none emerged immediately. I simply gazed at him, my heart suspended in a delicate balance of relief and concern. What is the reason? I have successfully accomplished it. He offered a subtle smile that failed to illuminate his eyes. I have come to understand what is truly important to me. I no longer wish to spend any additional time apart from those who are most important to me. I desire to be present here, alongside you. The earnestness in his voice caused a constriction in my throat. I reflected on the many years he had devoted to pursuing his career in a different city. The infrequent visits, the dinners left unattended, the birthdays commemorated through video calls. He was now informing me that it was finished, that he would be returning. I extended my hand and placed it gently upon his. Brian, that is a significant decision. Do you have complete confidence in that? He acknowledged with a nod. I have never felt more certain about anything. We lingered in the gentle illumination of the lamp, a silence enveloping us both. The clock on my nightstand ticked softly, counting each second in a night I was certain would remain etched in my memory. I had countless questions and a deep desire to comprehend the circumstances that had brought him to this point. For the moment, I allow myself to embrace the unexpected intimacy, the calm assurance in his voice, the peculiar solace in realizing that life can shift in an instant, with just a knock on the door. The lamplight emitted a gentle hum, casting a warm halo that softly illuminated the corners of the room. Once Brian announced his decision to move back, we found ourselves enveloped in the gentle embrace of the night, each of us clinging to the silence as if it could provide us with a sense of stability. I became aware that my mouth had become parched. a multitude of practical considerations clamored to emerge. Leases, boxes, sofas that stubbornly refused to navigate stairwells. Yet the underlying essence persistently beckoned to me. I sought to understand what ultimately unlocked the potential within him. "Could you please explain the reason for this now?" I inquired. "What is the reason for tonight?" He glided his thumb along the seam of my comforter, tracing gentle arcs as if he were refining a cherished memory. I preferred not to communicate it via phone. I often reflect on my father's words about how genuine conversations warrant a dedicated space, complete with a door and the luxury of time to truly engage. The reference to his father came forth like the gentle creak of an aged step, evoking familiarity, tenderness, and a hint of fragility. I moved to the edge of the bed, letting my legs dangle to the floor, and gestured toward the hallway with a nod. "Would you care for some tea?" He offered a small, appreciative smile and accompanied me outside. The corridor unfolded as a slender strip of muted illumination, with photographs gently arching into the passage of time. There stood Brian at 6, adorned in a superhero cape. At 14, he dominated the basketball court, and at 20, he wore a smile that seemed too wide for his face. I stopped beside one, him clad in a navy suit on the day he departed for his first job in a different city. That morning's drive is etched in my memory, my hands firmly gripping the steering wheel, while my heart engaged in a peculiar dance of pride intertwined with an unnameable sadness. In the kitchen, silence transformed into a symphony of home, the kettle filling, a cabinet door gently closing, and the delicate clink of 2 spoons resting on the counter. He stood with his palms flat against the island, observing the small details that define a home. The fruit bowl containing 2 bruised pears, the magnet proclaiming you are exactly where you need to be, and the little glass jar filled with loose tea leaves, exuding the scent of orange peel in winter. "I didn't leave because I despised my life there," he remarked, his gaze fixed on the jar. "I departed due to the persistent feeling of emptiness upon waking. Not sorrowful, not precisely, merely as though someone had glided through my days and stripped away all the vibrancy." The kettle emitted a gentle hiss. I retrieved 2 mugs and paused, allowing the words to find their place. "At times, a sense of emptiness conveys a deeper message," I remarked. "At times, it is a space we enter to confront the truths we have been overlooking." He gazed up at me, astonished, and then a wave of relief swept over his features. "I was confident you would comprehend." As the kettle clicked off, the kitchen lights twinkled like tiny stars against the chrome surface. I carefully poured the steam that curled upward and presented him with a mug. The warmth enveloped my hands pleasantly. It was only when the warmth enveloped me that I became aware of my exhaustion. "Do you recall Miss Carson?" he inquired abruptly. "Since 7th grade? The individual who prompted you to revise that essay, claiming you concealed your authentic voice beneath elaborate language." He chuckled softly into the rim of his mug. "That is the one. She once remarked that I was moving too swiftly for my own inquiries to keep pace. It was suggested that if I truly wished to find happiness, I must learn to pivot and allow them to engage with me. And this evening they apprehended you," I remarked gently. "This evening they apprehended me." He placed the mug on the table and crossed his arms, not in a defensive manner, but rather in a posture of readiness. It commenced several months prior. I continued to experience persistent headaches following my work hours. Initially, I suspected it was the screens or an excess of coffee. One evening, I remained late to refine a report that my team was preparing, focusing on projections that appeared more favorable than they truly were. It wasn't a complete fabrication, but the perspective lacked sincerity. I recalled my father's voice, reminding me that perfection isn't necessary, but clarity is essential. I came to the understanding that I could no longer be the individual who softens the sharpness of what truly matters. The clock positioned above the pantry ticked softly, a familiar and unremarkable sound. I observed how Brian carried himself now, the same boy who once stood with his feet a bit wider when he had a truth to share. It appears you have submitted your resignation. I tendered my resignation, he reiterated. However, there is more to consider. He reached into his jacket and retrieved a folded paper, its edges frayed from frequent handling. As he laid it out on the island, I immediately identified the handwriting. With an arched and slanted flourish, the resolute sophistication of a man who honed his signature in the margins of the newspaper. I whispered, touching the corner, "Your father. From where did you acquire this?" He mentioned it was from the garage, the vintage workbench. A tin contained screws, accompanied by 2 small letters beneath them, each bearing my name. This document is dated to the spring prior to his, well, you know. His voice became gentle and resonant. There was no need for him to complete the sentence. I acknowledged with a nod. Time seemed to fold in on itself, and once more, I found myself at the hospital window, a paper cup of coffee in hand, as the city continued its rhythm, oblivious to my presence. It is intriguing how sorrow alters the layout of your existence, yet the space remains yours to navigate. "Kindly read it to me," I requested. He carefully smoothed the crease and commenced his task. "Brian, should you find yourself reading this, you are at a pivotal juncture. Each individual experiences a handful of those moments. Society often encourages you to choose the path that appears tidy and clearly marked. The most rewarding path is often the one where the sound of your own footsteps resonates clearly." He took a moment to pause, swallowed, and then continued onward. "If you find yourself in need, remember that returning home is always an option. Home is not a sign of failure. This is the location where you rediscover the purpose of your hands." Brian paused and gazed upward. His eyes sparkled, not with tears precisely, but with the glimmer that emerges when truth is finally revealed. A sensation of release washed over me, as if a burden that had long accompanied my anxiety finally let go. As we entered, the carpet enveloped our footsteps in a gentle silence. The lamp by the couch was turned on. The room exuded a cozy disarray, a testament to a life fully embraced. The Afghan elegantly draped over the arm, books meticulously stacked on the side table, and a small bowl of buttons awaiting their return to the sweaters they belonged to. Brian sat with his elbows resting on his knees, his gaze fixed on the window, where the dark pane captured the subtle reflection of the two of us, side by side. "There's one more thing," he said, his tone causing my breath to catch, though not from fear. It resonated like the final click of a lock on a door yearning to be opened. I returned not solely for the program. I returned because I recognized that we have been existing in pieces. Festive occasions and telephone conversations. humor exchanged through messages. If given the choice, that is not the life I desire. I desire the simplicity of ordinary Tuesdays. I long to hear your laughter resonate in the kitchen as the radio plays that timeless tune, and you find yourself unable to resist its charm. I aspire to be fully engaged in the moments of life that remain unseen in photographs. The words flowed through me like a soft wave. I reflected on the numerous occasions I had gathered small stories for him, only to see them vanish into the brevity of a phone call. The neighbor's cat has claimed our porch as her afternoon throne. The tomatoes that ultimately ripened in late August. The clouds occasionally assembled above the house, as though preparing for a significant gathering. A warmth blossomed behind my ribs, transcending mere relief. It was observed. "Your Tuesdays are not something you owe me," I said in a soft voice. "Yet I am thankful for every moment you choose to share." He reclined, a crease of tension dissipating from his forehead. Additionally, there is a practical aspect to consider. If it meets your approval, I would appreciate the opportunity to remain here as I establish my footing. Not for eternity, merely sufficient time to grasp this new rhythm. I am available to assist with the mortgage. If you prefer, I can provide a fixed payment amount. I would prefer not to inconvenience you. I calculated the years in my mind, the budgets and the lists, reflecting on how I had learned to affirm myself in subtle yet consistent ways. I reflected on the tranquility of the house during certain evenings, how the clock occasionally echoed like a far-off train, and how the television occupied the atmosphere without seeking consent. I came to understand that what he was truly offering extended beyond mere financial assistance or support with repairs. He presented gifts, extending them with a sense of respect. "We will collaboratively devise a plan," I stated. "You will not be considered a guest. As a resident, you will have certain responsibilities to uphold. We will document it to ensure mutual clarity. Do we have a consensus?" His smile on this occasion illuminated his eyes. "Indeed, I concur." We allowed that word to settle in, much like a piece of furniture discovering its rightful spot. At that moment, as if life were playing a joke on timing, my phone buzzed on the coffee table. A notification from my friend Nora came through. "Are you still awake? Please confirm that you haven't forgotten about book club this Friday." A soft chuckle escaped my lips. "What is it?" Brian inquired. "Nora," I indicated while displaying the screen to him. "Literary gathering. She believes I am beyond redemption if I fail once more." "You love those nights," he said. The lemon bars. The intense discussions surrounding the possibility of absolving a character's poor choices through a flawless concluding chapter. His smile shifted. "Proceed. I will take responsibility for locking up this time." "I will go," I stated. "However, you will accompany me on one occasion. They'll adopt you for your insightful digressions." He expressed a look that suggested he might entertain the idea if tempted with lemon bars. The lightness was akin to a door slightly ajar, inviting in a breath of fresh air. But underneath it, the deeper current kept moving, steady and sure. "Do you recall," I inquired after a brief pause, "that when you were young you would stand at the back door and proclaim the weather to me as if you were a town crier? You would express alert. The scent of rain fills the air. Pancakes are highly recommended." He scrubbed a hand over his face, laughing. "I did not." "You absolutely did." I absorbed the information as if it were the evening news. I allowed a moment of silence to linger. I continued to listen. The room fell silent once more. Not oppressive, merely abundant. He reclined against the couch, closing his eyes for a brief moment, reminiscent of an individual who had at last set aside a burdensome load. I observed the gradual ascent of his chest and contemplated how our days could unfold with him present. 2 mugs left out by accident, the noise of a toolbox on a Saturday morning, an extra chair pulled to the table without ceremony. Returning home isn't a simple solution, I stated, as I firmly believe in conveying the complete truth. There will be instances when we may impede one another, and there will be occasions when you might question whether a misstep was made. It is perfectly acceptable to engage in contemplation. You have the option to make changes once more if necessary. The door that opens to welcome you home doesn't lock from the inside. He opened his eyes and turned his head to look at me. I may not have a clear vision of the next chapter, he remarked, but I am certain of the place from which I wish to pen it. There was a prolonged silence following that moment. The residence nestled into its nocturnal essence. A vehicle glided silently along the street outside. I envisioned my bed upstairs and the pages of my book awaiting me like courteous guests. Yet sleep seemed distant in the most delightful manner. There are nights when you don't want to close your eyes, because you're afraid the moment might drift off without leaving its forwarding address. It was one of those nights. At last we rose to our feet. He hugged me there in the living room, not an urgent grip, just a sustained, deliberate embrace that said we had both arrived at the same place. As we parted, my hand instinctively brushed against his cheek, reminiscent of the way I used to do it without a second thought. He didn't flinch the way teenagers sometimes do. He leaned into it, older now, perhaps understanding what a hand on the face can hold. "Welcome home, Brian," I said. "Thanks, Mum," he answered, voiced rough in a way that made it even warmer. Upstairs, I turned off the lamp in my room and slid beneath the quilt. The darkness was soft, not empty. In the stillness, I reflected on the little courageous actions that accumulate over time. The sound of a knock on the door, a letter resting in the garage, and the truth revealed at the kitchen counter under the cloak of midnight. I was unaware of the repairs that would occupy our weekend, the bills that would necessitate careful negotiation, and the compromises that would challenge us. However, I was already aware of this. The empty spaces in our lives frequently create opportunities for genuine experiences to take root. I closed my eyes and saw my son at the back door again, younger, calling up the weather to a woman who needed to be told. Notice. The scent of transformation is in the air. Pancakes are highly recommended. This time, I embraced it wholeheartedly.